I feel the need for speed. 5 words, 1 line. And with that, Top Gun sent an entire generation rushing to the cinema, and millions of them straight to the nearest Navy recruitment office. But behind the aviator shades, the afterburners, and that legendary volleyball scene lies a story most fans have never heard. Today we're diving into 15 facts about Top Gun. From a kiss nobody planned, to a check that bounced, to a stunt pilot who later flew to space. Stick around for the bonus fact at the end. It has a literal price tag attached, and it'll change the way you see this film forever. Top Gun wasn't just a movie in 1986, it was a cultural earthquake. It turned Tom Cruise into a global superstar, made leather jackets and Ray-Ban aviators mandatory equipment for an entire decade, and sent Navy recruitment numbers through the roof. Produced by Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson, directed by Tony Scott, with the energy of a music video on jet fuel.
3, 2, 1, break right!
$176 million at the worldwide box office, the highest-grossing film of 1986. And yet, or maybe because of all that, the story behind it is full of chaos, improvisation, and decisions that nearly brought the whole thing crashing down. Let's get into it. Fact 1. The invisible trick hiding in plain sight the whole time. Everyone knows Maverick as the guy who doesn't back down from anyone up in the air. On the ground, though, things looked a little different. Tom Cruise stands 5 feet 7 inches. His co-star Kelly McGillis stands 5 feet 10 inches. And for Paramount, that was a problem. The solution? Cruise wore specially made lift boots throughout the entire production. In key scenes, McGillis walked barefoot. Camera angles were carefully chosen to hide the height gap at every turn. You can actually spot the workaround if you look closely, especially in the elevator scene where McGillis wears a baseball cap. But that cap wasn't a wardrobe choice. The real reason she wore it is far more interesting, and we'll get to that, because it has nothing to do with fashion and everything to do with what happened after filming wrapped. Sometimes the most carefully engineered thing in a blockbuster isn't the aerial sequence, it's what's happening 6 inches below the frame. Fact 2. The scene the studio hated, and audiences never forgot. The original script called for a short volleyball montage, a few quick cuts. Functional, done. Tony Scott had other ideas. He gave the sequence an entire shoot day, slow motion, golden hour light, oiled bodies, the full energy of a high-gloss music video, before that was even a widely understood reference. When Paramount executives saw the footage, they were furious. One reportedly threatened to fire Scott on the spot. They had expected a clean insert shot and got what they considered an indulgent, gratuitous spectacle that had nothing to do with the plot. Scott refused to cut it. Today, that volleyball sequence, set to Kenny Loggins playing with the boys, is one of the most parodied, most quoted, and most culturally embedded moments in 1980s cinema history. Sometimes the director just knows more than the suit in the screening room. Fact 3. 5 stars who could have been Maverick and weren't. It's almost impossible to picture anyone else in that cockpit jacket, but the producers spent a lot of time trying. Patrick Swayze was considered. John Cusack was in the mix. Emilio Estevez was on the list. Even Tom Hanks was floated at one point. The closest call? Matthew Modine. He reportedly turned the role down over concerns about the film's glorification of military power, and chose instead to star in Full Metal Jacket, Stanley Kubrick's unflinching anti-war film, which came out the same year. Modine didn't want to make a film that romanticized war. Cruise wanted to fly. And with that single fork in the road, one ambitious young actor became the biggest action star on the planet, and the other made one of the most respected war films ever. Both made the right call, just for very different reasons. Fact 4. The cast member the Navy personally kicked off the ship. Filming on an active aircraft carrier is not a normal production environment. Rick Rossovich, who played Slider, learned that the hard way. During shooting aboard the USS Enterprise, Rossovich wasn't happy with his assigned bunk, too close to the ship's nuclear reactor for his comfort. So he moved, quietly, without asking anyone, to an empty bunk in a different section of the ship. A Navy officer ordered him to move back. Rossovich refused. The result? He was physically removed from the vessel, flown back to port, banned from the floating set for the remainder of production. Rossovich later admitted it, laughing that he got the full Navy experience. It's safe to say Slider's on-screen arrogance wasn't entirely an acting choice. At least, not that day. Fact 5. What every single minute of those flight sequences actually cost. To get real F-14 Tomcats in the air, Paramount struck a deal with the U.S. Navy. The price, $7,800 per flight hour. In 1986 dollars. Today, that figure would be more than double. That covered fuel, maintenance, and the Navy personnel required to operate the aircraft. When you add up all the flight sequences, carrier operations, and takeoffs filmed from the USS Enterprise, the aviation bill alone topped $1.8 million. That sounds like a lot. It was a lot. But when you watch those machines punching through the frame, engine roar, afterburners lit, cockpit-level perspective, you understand immediately why no green screen could have replaced it. Some things you can't fake, and the audience always knows the difference. Fact 6. Who kept their lunch and who didn't? Before Tom Cruise agreed to sign on, producers gave him an offer that was hard to refuse, a backseat ride with the Navy's Blue Angels. Cruise pulled multiple G-forces. He stepped off the tarmac and immediately vomited. Then, according to legend, he walked straight to a payphone, called producer Jerry Bruckheimer and said, "I'm in. I love it." He wasn't alone in losing his lunch. Almost the entire cast got sick during their mandatory backseat flights in real F-14s. Almost. Anthony Edwards, who played Goose, sailed through every maneuver without flinching. No air sickness bags, no pale faces, just complete, steady calm. While Cruise and the others were reaching for whatever was nearby, Edwards was the only cast member who walked away from the cockpit completely unshaken. Maybe that's why Goose was always the calm one. Some people are just built for the sky. Fact 7. He tried to say no. The studio wouldn't let him. Iceman is one of the most iconic supporting characters in American action cinema, and Val Kilmer wanted nothing to do with him. He found the script shallow, the character one-dimensional. They're mostly to glare at Maverick and deliver cold put-downs. He wasn't interested in the military tone. He didn't want the role. There was one problem. Kilmer was under contract with Paramount. The studio invoked the clause and forced him to audition. Kilmer's response was exactly what you'd expect. He gave a deliberately half-hearted read. By his own account, he was barely trying. He got the role anyway. Once filming started, Kilmer threw himself into the character with the kind of commitment that makes scenes. He later acknowledged that taking the part had been good for his career, even if the choice was never really his to make. Sometimes the best decisions you ever make are the ones someone else forced on you. Fact 8. The improvised moment that made Iceman unforgettable. Kilmer didn't just stay cold toward Maverick on screen, he kept his distance from Cruise between takes as well. No small talk, no shared meals. Some say it was a deliberate method choice to keep the tension alive. Others believe the coldness was genuine. Either way, the effect was real. The cast split into factions, Team Maverick versus Team Iceman. The rivalry wasn't just something the cameras captured, it was something the crew felt every day. Kilmer channeled all of it into his performance. His most memorable moment comes in the classroom scene, when Maverick is boasting about his inverted encounter with a MiG. Kilmer's sharp, dismissive cough, his silent bullshit, was never in the script. He invented it on the spot. And Cruise's visibly startled reaction? That was real. He hadn't seen it coming. The moment was so perfectly calibrated that it went straight into the final cut, untouched. One unscripted beat that made Iceman something more than a rival. It made him a legend. Fact 9. The check that bounced, the shot that didn't. Despite the already staggering budget, Tony Scott wasn't willing to let a perfect sunset slip away. Not for money, not even for a lot of money. During shooting aboard the USS Enterprise, Scott noticed the light wasn't hitting the jets the way he needed. He asked the ship's captain to physically turn the entire aircraft carrier around, just to chase the golden hour angle he had in mind. The captain's reply, "Sure, that'll cost you $25,000. Scott wrote a check on the spot without hesitation. The ship changed course. The shot was captured. It became one of the most visually striking sequences in the entire film. The only problem? The check bounced. The shot is in the movie. The bill was never settled, and the image is immortal. Fact 10. The kiss no one planned. In the emotionally charged scene where Charlie admits she's falling for Maverick, something happened that wasn't in the script. Cruise forgot his next line. Instead of stopping, he did the only thing that felt instinctively right in that moment. He leaned in and kissed Kelly McGillis. Mid-scene, unannounced, completely unrehearsed. Tony Scott was watching from behind the camera. He made a call. No second take. The unscripted kiss stayed in the film. It became one of the most quoted romantic moments in American cinema of the entire decade. And it only exists because an actor lost his place. Sometimes the best take is the one where something goes wrong. Fact 11. The man who flew that shot and where he went next. That moment, Maverick flips the F-14 upside down, stares the Soviet MiG pilot dead in the face, gives him the finger, and pulls away. The man who actually flew that maneuver wasn't a Hollywood stunt pilot. It was Scott "Scooter" Altman, a real Top Gun graduate and F-14 test pilot who personally flew several of the film's most daring aerial sequences. What Altman did next, no screenwriter would have dared invent. He was selected for NASA's astronaut program and completed 4 space shuttle missions. That means one of the most iconic moments in action film history was flown by a man who later traveled to space, not as a metaphor, literally. Fact 12. Why quoting this film at the real Top Gun will cost you money. At the actual Naval Fighter Weapons School, the real Top Gun, every quote from the 1986 film carries a $5 fine, payable immediately, no exceptions. This isn't folklore, it's written into the official bylaws of the program. Commander Guy Bus Snodgrass, a former Top Gun instructor, describes it in detail in his leadership book. Drop a line like, "I feel the need," and you pay on the spot. The reasoning, according to Snodgrass, the instructors refused to let a Hollywood movie undermine the professionalism of their program. The film may have sent thousands of young men and women toward a Navy career, but the moment they walk through the door on day one, the romance ends. The real Top Gun is not a movie, and the people there will make sure you understand that. $5 at a time. Fact 13. The man who died for this film, and whose name most people never noticed. Art Scholl was one of the finest aerobatic pilots in the world. For Top Gun, he was hired to capture aerial footage that no conventional camera crew could have gotten near. In September 1985, during pre-production, Scholl was flying a complex flat spin maneuver in his Pitts S2, a small, agile propeller plane fitted with a camera mount. He radioed that he was having a problem. Then the aircraft went down into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Southern California. Neither Art Scholl's body nor any wreckage of the plane was ever recovered. His death shook the entire cast and crew to the core. At the very end of the film, in the closing credits, Top Gun carries a dedication to his memory. Most audiences have never noticed that name is there. Now you know why it is. Fact 14. 2 missiles, dozens of kills, 1 perfect illusion. From where you're sitting in the theater, Top Gun fires an arsenal, missile after missile, kill after kill, across the full length of the film. In reality, the US Navy authorized exactly 2 live aim 9 Sidewinder missiles for the production. 2. Those 2 launches were filmed from every possible angle, then reused and cut strategically throughout the entire film. Everything else, miniatures. The special effects team built detailed scale-model jet replicas, staged missile launches using forced perspective, smoke, and pyrotechnics to simulate full-scale dogfights. The results were so convincing that Navy officials reportedly asked internally whether Paramount had somehow obtained unauthorized additional launches. They hadn't. 2 missiles, 1 effects team, and an audience that never suspected a thing. Fact 15. Danger Zone was turned down by 5 artists. None of them are certain it was the right call. Before Danger Zone became the anthem of a decade, it was a finished track in desperate search of a voice. Bryan Adams turned it down, reportedly uncomfortable with the film's military themes. Corey Hart passed, wanting to stay focused on his own material. REO Speedwagon said no. Toto was actually hired at one point and began recording, then pulled out due to a dispute with their label. Finally, Kenny Loggins. He'd already contributed Playing with the Boys for the volleyball sequence. When the Danger Zone slot reopened, he stepped in. The track went on to become perhaps the most recognizable movie song of the entire 1980s. It still plays in supermarkets, sports broadcasts, and trailers across the world nearly 40 years later. 5 artists said no. 1 said yes. And that one can no longer walk into any public space without hearing someone nearby start humming those first 5 notes. And now the fact I've been saving for last. This one has a literal price tag, and once you know it, you'll never watch the film the same way again. When Top Gun opened in American cinemas in May 1986, the US Navy didn't stand on the sidelines and wait. They moved. In selected theaters across the country, Navy recruiters set up tables directly in the lobbies, between the concession stand and the exit. Audience members who had just watched Maverick break the sound barrier walked out the door and were immediately met by real service members, in uniform, with flyers, information materials, and a direct message. You want this. Here's how to make it happen. The results were measurable and immediate. Recruiters reported a surge in interest that was visible in real time. In official surveys, approximately 90% of all inquiries received at Navy recruitment offices in the weeks following the film's release cited Top Gun as the direct trigger. 90%. Top Gun wasn't just a film. It was the most expensive, most widely seen, and most effective recruitment campaign the United States Navy had ever run. And not one member of the audience knew they were watching it. In fact, they paid to be recruited.